NCRadio.live, live on a Wednesday night. This is Clutch Time Sports, and now here are your hosts, Anderson and Banker.
It's on the byways, highways, and the freeways. Thank you very much for joining in with Clutch Time Sports. I'm your co-host, Ivan Anderson, along with my side part, my main man, Mr. JB, Josh Banker. How you feeling tonight, JB?
I'm good. I'm getting my right arm loose. Got my audition to be the Niners QB for next season in a couple of weeks. So, just greasing it all up, getting ready to throw those sideline passes. Good times.
Yeah. You would have to go right into that, but I had a great trip last week coming back from Minnesota, the frozen tundra that it was of minus 13 degrees average, and you threw in the windshield, it was like minus 23. So I'm happy to be back in Southern California where it's not as warm as we're used to, but hey, it's still warm, and I'll take it. But JB, your Niners, I'm sorry. There was not enough quarterbacks on the side
yeah,
line.
Seriously. I mean, wasn't Steve Young somewhere on the sideline reporting or something at that point? Could we just put some pads on him and throw him out there?
At that point, you needed Tony Romo up at the booth. Like, hey, Tony, come get a one-day contract.
Tony Romo wasn't even at that game. He was in Kansas City.
He wasn't. That's right, he was.
Greg Olson maybe out of the booth or something to do that. But, I mean, you get to a point where you just kind of throw up your hands and say, what are you supposed to do? I mean, for all that was said and done, the elbow of Brock Purdy is going to be a big story for the next year now, let alone just, not having him in that game after the first series. So, there's going to be a lot of rotating questions for the Niners going forward, as we get into free agency and Jimmy Garoppolo pretty much done now with the Niners because they can't afford to pay him to be a backup if they're still going to hitch a wagon at all to Trey Lance. And Trey Lance has got to get healthy now too. So, it was just sad because, you work so hard to get to a point where you can't even really fight anymore. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, your backup quarterback comes in and actually leads them on a touchdown drive.
Right.
They tie it up on a McCaffrey run that was just ridiculous, by the way. That touchdown was insane. But then after that, he gets slammed to the turf and the back of his head gets knocked out and gets a concussion. And you have to basically bring Purdy back in here who can't even feel his arm and try to throw a ball that he just has no sensitivity on. So, it was just weird.
Just wasn't a healthy team. I mean, even McCaffrey wasn't 100%.
Well, I mean, at this point of the season, I don't think anybody's healthy.
No.
So, I mean, nobody can really use that excuse. But when you're it just goes to show you that if there's ever a debate as to why quarterbacks get paid so much money, that is a perfect example of it because they are the cog that makes everything run on an offensive team. And I know the score was a blowout and stuff, but if you got a defense that's out on the field as much as the 49ers were because their offense wasn't doing anything, I don't know what you're expecting. So, it was disappointing because it was such a great story, especially to see how the Niners had moved on from Lance to Garoppolo and the Garoppolo to Purdy and Purdy being Mr. Relevant, getting him all the way to the NFC Championship game. But kudos to the Eagles, too. I mean, they are obviously a team that is to be reckoned with, and I'm still stunned at the way the Bengals-Chiefs game went because I think that the Bengals blew a golden opportunity and didn't put enough pressure on Patrick Mahomes to move him in and out of the pocket enough. And, he didn't have to make a lot of big plays with his feet, knowing that he had the high ankle sprain. And they let him become a pocket passer, which he's still just the most dangerous quarterback out there about.
Well, but Reed did a fantastic job of not going deep, not going even middle. He had at least 1 to 2 receivers within 3 yards of Mahomes as a bailout, knowing that he could not move. I just thought it was brilliant coaching. You got your best player, he's hobbled, and what do? You come up with a tweak of your playbook to keep players around where he could just outlet. It's like, oh, I don't have a good pass. Here's an outlet. Go make up yardage for it. I thought they did phenomenal. But what Osei did, people thought that they shouldn't have called that. I mean, he was just clearly out of bounds. It was just not a good situation to go ahead and hit the QB who's already out of bounds. You're going to get that flag every time. If it was a wide receiver or running back, that's a 50-50, but a quarterback, that's 100% flag.
And it's just so hard to stop your momentum. And you saw the agony on his face as they kept showing him, at the end of the game crying on the sideline. But as any kind of realistic sports fan would say, that one play doesn't win or lose you a game, 95% of the time. So, obviously there were other missed opportunities that the Bengals had, like I said, even just within the scheme of not giving enough pressure on Mahomes defensively to where, you can't put all that on Osai and put the blame on him.
I don't think so. No, but let's be honest too. Kansas City's defense just came to play.
They did.
I mean, they were in the backfield on the first snap. The pressure that he felt was just ridiculous. So he was always in a hurry-up situation. He never got comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals did themselves a disservice too. It felt like if I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but they had Joe Mixon, their main running back, in on only about half of their plays. In fact, it was almost a 2-to-1 split that their backup Samaje Perine actually had more plays than Joe Mixon in the game, which surprises me because Mixon is just as good as a pass catcher out of the backfield as a running back too. So, you wonder if they may have abandoned things a little bit earlier. Maybe there was something wrong with Mixon that we just didn't know about. But they also lost Tyler Boyd at one point during the game as well. Mm-hmm. So they were down one big receiver. You still got Jamar Chase and you got T. Higgins, and Hayden Hurst was doing great as well. So, it certainly felt like, to me at least, that it was going to be one of those games that whoever had the ball last was going to win. And sure enough, that was the Chiefs.
And, you talk about that run game. Mixon and Samaje didn't have much difference. I mean, I think Samaje had 5 carries. Mixon, you're right, only had like 8 carries. And I mean, they probably did maybe together a little under 100 yards. So everything was through the air. I mean, everything was through the air in that game. I don't really say that the Kansas City Chiefs, and I know for those Kansas City Chiefs fans, please don't hate us. We're just telling you how it is, and I understand when you really love your team, because I'm a Steeler fan, and of course I haven't seen anything, and I don't know how long. But Kansas City didn't win this game as much as the Bengals lost this game. I mean, you're so right. What Osei did, that wasn't it. They have not put points on the board when it comes to the whole season. I think their average victory has been like 3 or 4 points for Kansas and Mahomes. But the point is they get it done. And I think that's going to hurt them big time going into the Super Bowl, especially if he's not 100%. Those Eagles are going to just dominate him and dominate that Chiefs offense.
Well, they're certainly going to have the benefit of having an extra week to prepare. More so, I think, for the fact that you get Mahomes a little bit more healthy than what he was during the AFC Championship game. But it's sure going to be an interesting battle between those two teams. They're very similar in a lot of ways, I think, in the fact that they have quarterbacks that are actually mobile, though I would obviously put Jalen Hurts way above Mahomes as far as mobility and the dangerous factor that Hurts presents as a runner. But they both got multiple weapons offensively. They both got defensive lines that like to get after the quarterback. And it'll just be interesting because, let's face it, the Eagles faced a Giants team in the NFC divisional round.
Right.
That, would you say they're a scary team? No, probably not really. The Niners defensively, of course, they're up there in the top 3. But when they're out there for 80% of the game because their offense isn't doing anything, I don't know how much of a big test did the Eagles get. And the Eagles got a little lucky too. They got a 4th down reception that shouldn't have happened, and I don't know why the Niners didn't challenge it at that point because it turned into their opening drive touchdown. Who knows how that changes the entirety of the game? But anyway, I do think that the Chiefs have been a little bit more battle-tested in this playoff run. And they obviously have the experience that the Eagles overall have just not had over the last 3 or 4 years since their last Super Bowl run in 2017. So we got 2 weeks before that all happens again, but it'll be an interesting contrast between, the experience of Andy Reid against the inexperience really of Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff of the Eagles.
That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely fun game. Don't get me to root for the Eagles, though. I'm just telling you.
Well, we're done with quarter one, baby boy.
All right.
Are we saying quarters now?
Just out of curiosity, real quick, did anybody on this station say anything about the Eagles going to the Super Bowl on, last August?
Oh, boy.
Is this where I take my headset off, Tom? Is that what you're saying?
Just wondering. Somebody said Cincinnati, somebody said 49ers, somebody said the Eagles. I can't remember.
Yes. It was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Tom Kelly who said that.
Yeah, just checking. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up quarter one. We'll be back with the second quarter here in just a few minutes, and I'm going to get your opinion on a few things. All things football related. So stay tuned for that right here. TNCRadio.live. Be right back.
Catch Landline Now every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, along with an encore presentation weekdays at noon, right here on TNCRadio.live.
This infoblog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 4 things truck drivers need to know about motor truck cargo insurance. Motor truck cargo legal liability insurance, also referred to as cargo insurance, covers the loss or damage to the freight you're hauling. When hauling cargo, there's always a risk that it could be damaged or stolen. While there are no legal requirements to have cargo insurance, it is highly recommended to better protect yourself and the goods you're hauling. What is cargo insurance? Cargo insurance protects you from financial loss if the freight you're hauling gets damaged or lost. In the event of an accident, cargo insurance pays for the amount you're insured for only if the event is covered. Cargo damage resulting from collision, accidents, fire, and spoilage are examples of covered events in most cargo policies. Benefits of cargo insurance. When hauling cargo, someone's paying you to safely deliver someone's assets from point A to point B. The main benefit of motor truck cargo insurance is that you reduce financial loss if the cargo you're hauling gets damaged. Also, purchasing cargo insurance gives you a peace of mind knowing that you're covered if your cargo gets damaged. How is cargo premium determined? The motor truck cargo rate depends on the type of cargo you're hauling. The classifications include drive van freight, flatbed freight, refrigerated freight or reefer, autos, household goods mover, and hazmat. As there are many different cargo classifications for a motor carrier, discuss with your agent the type of freight you intend on hauling. Insurance carriers generally classify motor carriers with the highest commodities hauled. So even if you only intend to haul autos 5% of the time and 95% of the time flatbed freight, your premium will be based on an auto hauler. This is why it's so important to talk with your agent about everything you'll be hauling. This ensures that the policy is written the correct way and excludes nothing that you intend to haul. Nobody wants to be stuck with a cargo claim commodity that's not covered under their policy. Please note that the coverages, limits, and explanations of coverages mentioned here can differ with every motor truck cargo policy depending on the type of cargo hauled and carrier requirements. Please discuss what is included and what can be added on or endorsed to your policy or quote with your current agent. What limits are you required to carry? There are many factors that determine the cargo limit a motor carrier should carry. Unlike commercial auto liability, generally the shipper who owns the freight will provide you with a minimum limit required to haul a load for them, not the federal government. The standard limit of cargo insurance for general freight is $100,000, but this limit can differ. For example, if a carrier is an auto hauler, his cargo limit could be anywhere from $150,000 to $1 million depending on the number of autos hauled and the auto's conditions. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. The St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund is excited to once again offer its diabetes prevention program. This free CDC-approved year-long program begins February 7th with live webinars focusing on nutrition, movement, stress management, sleep, and more. Sponsored by Southern Recipe, this program is for those at risk not already diagnosed with diabetes. Visit our website at truckersfund.org, take the risk assessment located under the Health and Wellness tab, and register today.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is the second quarter of Clutch Time Sports. I'm Tom Kelly. I'm going to be asking opinion questions of our hosts this quarter, getting their unvarnished opinion on what they think about some of the things going on with football. It's all things football right now. We're in that lull week, which I still don't understand. But we're in that lull week between the determination of who will be going to the Super Bowl and actually getting there.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people.
All right.
Okay, Jerry.
Got a lot of problems with you people. All right, so I'm going to give you this first one. I will give you 2 minutes each, because it's kind of a thinker here. But if you don't use it all, that's fine. But I am keeping time, and I will knock you out if you take too much time.
I lost you.
All right.
I lost you, Tom.
Well,
I lost you.
You still hear me okay, Josh?
Yes, sir.
All right. So check your equipment there, buddy. So we will start off.
We both said it.
We will start off here, Josh, with you. Okay?
All right, hit me.
How great is the Texans coaching hiring decision versus how bad is the Denver Donkeys coaching hiring decision? Josh, you're up.
It's such an interesting difference between the two, because you've got a guy, D'Amico Ryans, who's obviously done great with San Francisco as the defensive coordinator, and going to a team that he knows very well because he played there for many years, D'Amico Ryans to the Texans. I will find it interesting to see if they can maybe get a quarterback to come there with him, perhaps who was on his former team that he just has been leaving. And time will tell with Denver. I like Sean Payton, but it'll be interesting to see if he's got any magic fairy dust to get Russell Wilson off his keister and back to being the Russell Wilson with a blue helmet instead of an orange helmet.
Ivan, same question. How do you compare and contrast these two hires that were announced actually within moments of each other yesterday officially, and by the time they got announced, of course, they weren't much of a surprise. But I think as the news started to break, a bit of surprise for each side. Tell me, what do you think about these decisions?
I'm not a big Texans fan, and I think the ownership is just doing something to kind of placate what's going on down there anyways, and that's the environment. And it wouldn't matter to me what they did. As far as their quarterback, I don't know anybody that would want to go there. I think they're going to have to wait and get something from the draft situation. And as far as Denver's concerned, I'm just not so sure that's a good fit at all. I've never been a Peyton fan. I'm not interested in him as the leader of that team, I guess you would say. But if it was up to me, I would get Wilson out of there because I think Wilson should play for somebody else. So I think it's equal. I think both teams are bad. I think even regardless of who's quarterback in there, I don't think anything's going to happen to both those teams. I think they'll still be at the bottom of the pack.
All right. Kind of following along the same line, Josh, 3 years from now, not next year, not the year after, 3 years from now, which team will be better, the Texans or the Donkeys?
Boy, that's tough.
Wow.
To me, it'll depend on if the Texans want to spend some money. because yes, I agree with Ivan. You could go through the draft and get a quarterback, get a Bryce Young, or somebody of that nature. But ultimately, hopefully Dameon Pierce works out to be the stud running back that they kind of saw glimpses of in his first year. But I do see talent still there in Denver. It's just a matter of whether or not Russell Wilson will be anything decent in 3 years. So, boy, I'd be surprised if either team was a 500 team in 3 years. That's just my opinion.
Wow. Okay, I think many pundits would disagree with that, but sounds like you agree with that, Mr. Anderson.
I do. I just think that you got. I don't know. The culture has changed in Denver, and I would not. If you said that the Denver Broncos are where they're at a year ago, I wouldn't believe you. I'm just shocked because they've always had such a good culture. But Texans, they've never had a good culture from the day they started. And I don't think Ryan's is going to do anything in there. So I agree with Josh. They're at the bottom of the heap for the next 3 years.
Interesting. All right. Well, I guess we'll see. This next question, I'm going to focus in on Mr. Anderson, who has children who play sports. So this one goes to you, Tua. Mr. Tua down in Miami. Who's responsible when he has brain damage 10 years from now?
Well, if you really want to know the truth, I blame the NFL and I blame the ownership. Because we all saw that Sunday game. If you didn't watch it, when he staggered, in my mind, there was no reason for him to continue. And then the week later to get knocked out of the game and then have a third concussion that he didn't know he had a third concussion. It's just ownership, management, and the NFL. And to me, if you can't, it's kind of like Dr. Seuss, who's watching the bee, watching the bee, watching the bee. It's kind of one of those situations. And I think you need to get that ownership out of Miami. I do not like that ownership. Never have. I think it's done. You need new blood in that for that franchise. And I think, too, it would have been in safer hands if he had somebody that really cared about the players.
Interesting take. Next one, we got two more questions here. Next one, I'll give you about a minute and a half on this one, though I think you could do a whole show on this one, Josh. The next one, tell me, what are your thoughts of the Shanahans versus the Reeds?
Well, I am still amazed even today at the creativity of both of those families, honestly, between the Shanahans and the Reeds. And they're both different because, especially Kyle, the way that he's almost kind of reinvented the running game in the NFL right now. I don't want to say it's like the West Coast version of what Bill Walsh did in the 80s, but there's, you can maybe make some comparisons to it. And Andy Reid, what I find amazing about him is I think more than any coach in the NFL, he makes football fun.
Yeah.
He makes it a game. And if anybody saw a couple weeks ago when they were doing the rotating huddle and came out and ran a play in 10 seconds, I mean, I'm like, wait a minute, that's like Pee Wee League stuff.
It is. But it was so fun.
And it makes me smile. I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. He definitely has fun. I love them both. I think the Shanahans and the Reeds have been great for football and wish them both long-term success and hope that they continue to be involved. Look, there's 10 head coaches in history who've actually retired on their own terms.
True.
Most are fired, and these guys probably will eventually be fired. Hard to imagine right now, but they probably will be, and they'll probably end up someplace. They both have plenty of years left, and I think they're going to end up being very interesting. All right, final question, and I may have to extend time on here because I jotted down that each would probably need more than a minute, but I'm going to start with Mr. Anderson on this one. Huge question. What is Tom Brady's legacy?
Wow. Believe it or not, and this is going to be very interesting, and I can say this speaking with this background, an underdog. And I know people look at his career now, but people tend to forget his career started in the late, or I should say the mid-1990s at the University of Michigan, where he played second fiddle to Brian Griese, the great the son of the great quarterback Bob Griese from the Miami Dolphins. And everyone who knew anything about Michigan football knew that he was the better quarterback and still would have led them to a national championship with Charles Woodson at that time on that team if he was starting. And he had a great season his senior year in 1999. And we all forget that he went to he was not drafted as a first-round pick, and he wound up going to the Patriots, and he was not the starting QB. Does everybody remember who the starting QB was over there?
Drew Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe. And Drew Bledsoe had just gotten himself a ridiculous contract that nobody had ever heard of for a quarterback, and he gets knocked out of the game. And because of that, that's why we're hearing about Tom Brady. So I think if we really examine his legacy, it's going to be a guy that most people didn't think could play, who wind up being one of the greatest quarterbacks that's ever lived.
All right. And same question, Josh, to you. What is Tom Brady's legacy?
Well, as a 49er fan and a guy that I know that Brady idolized growing up, it's Joe Montana being the best quarterback ever, Brady takes that quarterback title as the GOAT, hands down. I mean, there's just no way to say it. No other way to say it. You get a guy that comes out of the draft like that is not expected to be much of anything, throw him into the fire and give the Patriots an excuse to basically never take him off the field. And he goes and wins the most Super Bowls of any one individual player of all time. And what's interesting to me is, I think we've had this discussion before too. If you look at the Super Bowl winning teams that Brady was the quarterback for, how many other bona fide Hall of Famers did he really play with? I mean, Joe Montana had Jerry Rice for a number of seasons, and yes, Tom Brady had Randy Moss for I think one of those Super Bowl wins. Yeah. But aside from that, I mean, you got Julian Edelman, you've got Gronk, you've got some of these other guys, but it was really just Tom. And a bunch of other guys that he made great because that's just who Tom was. And if there's any debate on who the greatest quarterback of all time is, I think it stops and ends right there at Tom Brady.
Let me throw some in there real quick, Tom. And this has kind of bothered me because some people have really had some harsh things to say about him, doing his retirement video. And he even stated, and I thought it was a great disclaimer, that he said, look, you only get one time to have a crying tear moment of retirement. But to come down hard on the guy just because he loves the game as much as he did and he wanted to play it as long as he could, and now he's retiring it again, I don't begrudge the guy. He loved the game of football, and he was just blessed enough to play it to this age. And that's incredible in itself.
It is. And I think he goes down in history as the GOAT, and I don't think in our lifetimes we will ever see anything else like it.
Agreed.
To have the longevity that he's had and the excellence for that longevity is just remarkable. There was a headline, I don't remember where I saw it today, but is he the GOAT of all sports GOATs? That's a very debatable question.
It's no, but you can say no, but you can't deny that it's a debatable question.
I know. Absolutely. I just wanted to get you riled up.
No,
that's why I said it.
It's debatable.
It is debatable.
It would be a great question. Maybe we'll cover that sometime soon in our second quarter, where we get the opinions of Josh Banker and Ivan Anderson right here on TNCRadio.live. We're going to take halftime. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and when we do, we've got the third quarter, and that, of course, means Trey Rings. We'll be right back. TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned.
I'm Shelley Johnson with Kathy Tuccaro. You can hear us Tuesdays on TNCRadio.live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Women Road Warriors. And don't miss Steve Summers' Overnight Drive right here on TNCRadio.live. Weeknights, midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Very often I'll have a patient who'll come in and tell me about symptoms of anxiety or about depression, and they're not sure where it's coming from. They just know that they're hurting and that they have many symptoms that they'd like to see relieved. And I'll ask them to do something for me that helps me to identify what is the chief contributor to their issue. I'll ask them to draw me a pie chart. Have you ever seen a pie chart before? I'm sure you have. Like the government has a pie chart. It's shaped like a pie and it shows spending. And say 40% of it is military and 20% is education or whatever it is, the total makes up 100% of the pie. So I'll ask somebody, draw me a pie chart of your depression. Or how about a pie chart that says, I am your anxiety? Where is the anxiety coming from? And it's fascinating to see the results because people will often draw a giant slice that has to do with their work or their relationship or something from the past that they can't seem to get over. But that gives me the clue to know where to go to help them to finally heal. Try it.
Catch Mind Your Trucking Business Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern with James Rogers, Jamie Irvine, and Tom Kelly. They provide expert advice about starting, operating, and growing a professional trucking business. It's Mind Your Trucking Business on TNCRadio.live.
All right, welcome back in TNCRadio.live. That was halftime. I hope you enjoyed your halftime show. Man, can that girl sing?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Well. And we are really having fun with that new second segment. I actually love that time. But if you want to check us out, please go out on the web. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram. You can check us at Clutch Time TNC. We're happy to talk to you, throw in some questions, talk about sports, whatever you like to do. But this is the third quarter. This is the time that we try to get it done, and we try to get it done with some fun and excitement. And that is because in the last you missed up my punchline. That's because in the last 4 years, we don't want Trey Ray.
I got to admit, you faked me out, man. You faked me out. But you know what? That is a perfect segue into Rang number one. Ivan, did you see last week probably the best fake ever on a basketball court?
Which ankle breaker?
It wasn't on an NBA court. It was actually on a college basketball court. You know the old saying, when you gotta go, you gotta go. Well, could the same be true when you say, when you gotta eat, you gotta eat? Well, this was taken to a whole new level last week, but turns out it was all just a ruse. A video went viral, as you may or may not have seen, as an apparent Uber Eats delivery man was bringing a McDonald's order to someone sitting courtside at the Loyola Chicago Duquesne men's basketball game last Wednesday. The man walked onto the court in the middle of play, looking around for the person he was supposed to be delivering it to. And it even made ESPN, but turns out the next day they figured out it was all a prank. But best fake ever. I mean, he had the bag of food, he had a jacket on, and the referee, he didn't stop play because he kind of walked onto the corner of the court and the referee was like waving him off. But best fake ever, just like Ivan just faked me out at the start of the whole Trey Rang segment. So you and the Uber Eats guy have something in common. And how does it always come down to eating and food on Clutch Time?
That's our motto. That's our motto.
It is, right. Sports and food. They both go hand in hand. All right. Rang number 2. A story about the future, Ivan. Not sure how much VR headset action you throw on these days, but I know as a basketball fan, you'll appreciate the opportunity that Meta, Facebook, is expanding its partnership with the NBA and WNBA to offer more than 50 live VR games on their Meta Quest headset. The company will deliver a package of 52 live NBA games, including 5 immersive 180-degree monoscopic VR games. Yes, I'm reading this because I am not from the Big Bang Theory. They're all going to be on this Meta Horizon Worlds and everything like that. But anyway, they're going to have some WNBA, NBA G League, and NBA 2K League games over the course of the season. You'll be able to access game highlights, recaps, archive content. And in the future, they say that fans will be able to get even more content in their app with an NBA League Pass subscription. So, Ivan, does that make you want to go run out and get yourself a VR headset?
No, and I'll explain why after you do rang number 3, because that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's kind of an interesting future that we're looking at. Okay, rang number 3. Rang number 3. Cleveland has lost a legend, Ivan. He may not be a household name, but John Adams, no, not the president. Do you know where I'm going with this already?
Go ahead.
Okay, John Adams dropped the beats literally at nearly every Cleveland Indians / Guardians game since August of 1973. So John Adams, who passed away at the age of 71 after several declining years of health, he's the man responsible for the beginning of that big bass drum that you would hear in the background of every Cleveland Guardians at bat at every home game. He bought that bass drum for $25 at a garage sale back in the 70s. And when he first brought it to the Municipal Stadium there in Cleveland back in August of 1973, little did he know the steady beat he would drum whenever the home team was batting would turn into nearly a 5-decade gig. Adams hasn't been able to come to home games over the last couple of years, but was honored by the team last season with a bronze sculpture of his drum, which is at the team's Heritage Park area at Progressive Field. And there's also a plaque mounted on the wall next to his seat and above the top row of the left field bleachers. He was a fixture in Cleveland, performing at 3 All-Star games, 3 World Series, and he was also there the night Len Barker pitched a perfect game for Cleveland back in 1981. So off to the happy hunting ground, Mr. John Adams, legend indeed, and that is tonight's Trey Rangs.
Let me say I knew exactly who you were talking about, but I have to acknowledge I did not know he passed away 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I did not know, but I knew exactly who. That's why I started laughing, because I knew exactly. I'm from Ohio originally, so everyone knows John Adams. You cannot live or come from Ohio and don't know that man. Some would say he started the tribe, but yeah.
Or at least the marketing of the tribe, that's for sure.
Yes.
It wasn't Bob Uecker or Pedro Serrano.
No.
Or Dorn.
Dorn? Did you say Dorn?
Dorn, yeah, the third baseman. Come on. Wild Thing, Ricky Vaughn.
No, that's why I'm laughing.
That wasn't the, yeah. Forget about the curveball. Give him the heater.
Oh, man. You know,
I know Tom's smiling from ear to ear right now.
Because you can see the fake, the old Bambino left field.
I tell you what, do you guys mind if I call an audible right here in the middle of the game?
No, not at all.
Let's do this. It's queuing up here. Give me just a second.
No, he isn't.
I bought this whole drum set for $25. August 24th, 1973 is when I started. I showed up for the game, and I showed up for the next one, the next one, the next one. and I've missed 45 games in 45 years. It just kept going. It took a life on of its own, better than I could have ever imagined. This drum is the same drum I started with. I set the rules. So if you have a guy in scoring position, that'd be second or third. Then I'll start. Come on, let's get him home.
14-11 Mariners. 3 on, 2 out. The runners go. Please, Cleveland has won it.
Just start very slow, and each pitch gets faster and faster. So that's my pattern. That's my process. I've been doing it for 45 years. 45 more years, and I call it quits. Just so you know. I really feel blessed. I get to meet so many wonderful people from all over the world. I would have never dreamt something like this, would come from baseball. Every time I swing, I get a hit.
There you go.
Great tribute.
Yeah.
That's a great tribute.
John Adams, Cleveland Indians, now Cleveland Guardians drummer. And, rest in peace, sir. That was, you were a part of baseball lore. And when they write books about baseball and, this era, they'll have to mention him, as one of those fans who made a difference along with, what was the crazy Mets guy? The ball, I'm talking about.
I can't remember. Yeah,
but the minute I said that, every single sports fan knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And there's so many guys like that. Not every team gets that.
No.
Maybe, there are a few out there though that have stuck out and been that great. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, what's interesting to me is that I mentioned this to you guys off the air, but one of the things that my brother and some of my other family and I like to do every year is trying to see our San Francisco Giants in a new city every year if we can. This year we're going to Toronto at the end of June, but also with the thought of heading eastward across the Great Lakes into western New York and going to Cooperstown for the first time, because none of us have ever done that. And I know this seems kind of silly, but I mean, you think about the Cleveland Indians / Guardians. Why can't that drum go over to Cooperstown?
It should.
I think it should.
I bet it will.
Why not?
Absolutely.
I bet it will.
It has to.
Yeah, it should. Well, I mean, where else would they put it? I guess they're at Cleveland Stadium, in its own. But if not there, it should be in Cooperstown.
That is memorabilia that people should know. That's got to be there. That has to be there. Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff right there. One other thing I wanted to ask you guys right before we head out here at the third quarter, getting ready to go into the fourth and final quarter. Did you see, as it relates to sportscasting in the St. Louis Cardinals, that Chip Caray, the grandson of Harry Caray, the son of Skip Caray, is now taking over as the voice of the Cardinals after the loser who was there all those years managed to get himself fired after his third DUI. So Chip Caray comes over to take over the television play-by-play of the St. Louis Cardinals 5 decades after his grandfather, who, do you guys know why Harry Caray left St. Louis and went to Chicago?
I do not know that story.
The longtime rumor is that he had an affair with Mrs. Bush. That's the long that when the Bush family owned the Cardinals, the longtime rumor has been when he was a young man, he and Mrs. Bush were playing kissy kissy, and Mr. Bush said, "Get that guy out of here." And he ended up in Chicago, and they hired a young guy named Jack Buck to take over, and the rest of it, as they say, is history.
Well, there's only one way to best describe that whole situation.
What is that, JB?
Holy cow!
Holy cow! All right, we'll be back with Josh Banker and Orin Anderson right after this.
Hey!
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for tncradio.live wherever you listen to podcasts.
For the latest in Houston traffic, weather, news, and information, don't miss the Evening Surge, weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. on tncradio.live.
As a professional driver, the engineers at Front Lane know that you remain focused on the road regardless of weather and traffic conditions. That's not always true of the drivers behind you. Every 9 minutes, another commercial vehicle is rear-ended by a driver failing to control their speed. And guess who gets the blame? When you have to brake quickly, Tailbone illuminates a series of bright LED lights that allow the driver behind you to react up to 50% faster. Using amazing accelerometer technology and a battery that will last for years, Tailbone meets the standards set by the NHTSA and the FMCSA. Learn more by visiting www.frontlane.com/tailbone. That's www.frontlane.com/tailbone. Approved in all 50 states, it's Tailbone by Front Lane.
All right, guys, we've got the fourth quarter coming on here, and you got a little time before you get to the 2-minute warning. What's up for this quarter?
Well, it's really funny. Real quick, JB rolled into the NBA after yesterday's game. The Los Angeles Lakers, Mr. LeBron James, the king himself, is only 88 points away from the all-time scoring title.
And it's one of those questions I really actually wanted to ask you about tonight at some point. Obviously, he's going to pass Kareem, barring some really bad mishap. You know how many three-pointers Kareem had in his career?
2?
0.
1. He had 1.
Okay.
1 three-pointer in his career. So it kind of goes to this question of like, okay, back in the day when we were growing up, didn't that scoring record just seem absolutely impossible to reach? Now here we are with, and who knows how much the 3-point shot obviously has had a big effect on that. But to see still though what LeBron is doing as a 37-year-old, I think he's going to be 38 pretty soon.
30.
Here.
No, he already turned 38.
He already turned 38. So yeah,
yep,
I mean,
December.
He's just had his first triple-double of the year against the Knicks, and he's amazing. I mean, for as much as I never root for any team that he plays for, because more often than not he's playing against my Warriors in the finals anyway. You still can't do anything but respect him. Although some of his tantrums lately have been a little bit off-putting to me, but that's a whole nother quarter. We don't have overtime tonight, so we won't go into that.
Well, it's so funny because there's 3 guys at the top of that scoring title. You've got Kareem still, LeBron, and of course third is Karl Malone. But what they all have in common is that they've either had 1 or 0 major injuries to their body. Kareem had a severe sprained ankle, no major injuries. LeBron has had no major injuries. And Karl Malone has had no major injuries. And the other thing they share in common is they all played very late in their career. Kareem, I think, retired at 43. I think Karl Malone retired at 41 or 42. And if LeBron has it his way, he's probably going to be somewhere of about 41, 42 years old when he retires. So that's the thing that the 3 of those gentlemen have in common.
Okay, opinion question for you guys, though. Is the breaking of the record legit, considering that until he was 33 years old, Kareem didn't have a three-point shot? There was no such thing. He was 33 when they instituted
I'm going to say yes, it's legit, because as in any sport, it evolves. The game changes and it evolves. And, the amount of games you play, how many games you can play in a season, you have to factor that in. So I'm going to say it's a legit victory for him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that because you're playing the hand that you're dealt, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about, let's say, the home run record in baseball, and I'm the biggest Giants fan there is, that's a debatable question. Is Barry Bonds' record, more legit than Hank Aaron's record? That's, again, a very debatable question. But it also goes back to the question that I was going to ask you, Ivan, about how, both of us probably never thought in our lifetime we'd see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record broken. But do we ever see Cal Ripken's games played streak broken? What kind of records are we going to see from here on out? And it goes back to Tom Brady and that subject. Are we going to see 7 Super Bowl victories by the same quarterback ever again? It's just hard to say yes at this point.
I agree with what Tom said earlier. I say yes, but not necessarily in our lifetime. I mean, I think that records are made to be broken, and I think you get those once-in-a-generation athletes that just come along, like Cal Ripken Jr. You just get those athletes that everything just lines up for them. Their health, their abilities, and that longevity. I mean, come on, is anybody really going to break Serena Williams' record in our lifetime?
Probably not.
Yeah. But
is anybody going to break Djokovic, who just got his 22nd major championship this weekend in Australia too? I mean, it's just You're right. Records are made to be broken for sure, and honestly, that's what makes sports so exciting. Competition is great. It doesn't have to just be always on the court or on the field. It could be in the debate table or on the debate stand with you and I talking about whether or not LeBron's scoring record is legit or not. I mean, he's one of a kind for sure. So there's probably going to be who knows, Bronny may take his scoring title at some point when he's all said and done. You never know.
And you brought up a good point. I mean, we talk about Brady. I mean, how many individual players have gotten that close? I mean, what's the most decorated NFL player in the history of the game besides Brady?
You tell me.
Who would you? I'm just asking because I don't necessarily know because I didn't look it up. But it's like you get 7. What has he got? 7 Super Bowls. 6? Is it 6 Super Bowl MVPs or 7? Is it 6 or 7 Super Bowl MVPs?
I think for a while Charles Haley was the most besides him because I think he'd had 3 with the Cowboys and 2 with the Niners. Yep. So yeah, I mean individually, can you say Charles Haley though is the main attribute for both of those teams winning 5 Super Bowls? Probably not.
No.
He was never the MVP of those Super Bowls. So again, to see Tom Brady do what he's done for so long is just unbelievable, and I can't see that happening, especially with the way that players are. They're not going to play till they're 45 anymore in the NFL like Tom Brady has.
No, they're not. But there again, the game changes. They've already added another game. Now we're playing 17 games in the season.
True. And
who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, 6 years from now, they're playing 18 games a season,
which doesn't help the longevity.
No, it sure doesn't. Not at all. So we've got to have our picks in for the Super Bowl
next week.
You got to discuss. Yeah, we got to do that next week. You've got a week to decide. Got a week to decide, but you got to give me something.
See how Patrick Mahomes' ankle is by then. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel. See you, everyone.